Hello, welcome to section 2.1, integers and absolute value. This whole chapter is going to be about what we call integers. And integers are all whole numbers and their opposites. Now, whole numbers are numbers that are 0 or greater and do not include decimals and fractions. Okay, so here's some examples of all whole numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The dot, dot, dot means it goes on, and their opposites. So the opposite of 1 is -1, opposite of 2 is -2. Excuse me, these are all our positive numbers. These are all of our negative numbers. And we'll put that down here. So these are our positive numbers. And you'll notice that as we move to the right, our numbers are getting larger. Okay, so as we move to the right, our numbers get larger. Now these here are our negative numbers. Okay, and as I move further away from 0, our numbers continue to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So on the number line, when you start anywhere, even if you start at 4, as you move to the left, your numbers are going to get smaller. Now you'll notice we didn't include 0, and the reason we do not include 0 is that it is neutral. It's not positive, it's not negative, which is why it does not have an opposite. Okay, it's a neutral number, it's not positive or negative. Okay, so we're going to start just by doing some comparing. We'll get into absolute value in just a minute. Okay, and when you think of your integers, when you think of your negative numbers, you're thinking of something being taken away. Okay, so when we talk about 5 degrees below 0, that really represents a -5 degrees. Okay, when we talk about taking out a loan, that represents negative money. You do not have that money, you're borrowing it. Okay, when we talk about positive numbers, you're talking about above sea level. Sea level would be 0. Any number above it would be positive. Therefore, any number below 0 would be negative. Okay, so you need to kind of visualize the numbers as we go through this. So we're going to write an integer for each situation. Okay, 6 degrees above 0. Now you do not need to include any units on these. We just want an integer. So if it's above 0, it's going to be positive. So the answer would be 6. You can put 6 degrees on there if you want. 100 feet below sea level, and we just talked about that. Sea level will be at 0, so if it's below sea level, it's going to be to the left of that 0, representing a negative number. So it would be -100. And once again, if you want to put feet on there, you can. But the important part here is figuring out is the number representing a positive number, a positive integer, or negative integer. Okay? Now we're going to graph each set of integers on a number line. Okay, and now a number line just looks like this here. One arrow, here's my other one. You don't have to start at 0, but you do have to make sure you include all of the numbers. Okay, so if it's smart to think about what my smallest number is here. Now if I have a -2, an 8, and a -7, the smallest number is going to be furthest to the left of the 0, and that would be -7. So I'm going to start at -7. And I'm going to skip every other number just because of room here. It's -1. Here's my 0. That's a +1. +3, 4, and 5, 6, and 7, 8, and 9. Okay? Now, if I'm graphing, when you graph, you are making a dot on the number line. It's going to be on the number line. Okay? Not above it, not below it, on it. Okay, I'm going to make a dot on the number line at that number. So negative 2 is going to be, oh, it looks like I skipped some numbers here. And I did. Let's fix this real quick. Negative 4, negative 3. I skipped the negative 3. There's my negative 1. Here's my 0. Positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Sorry about that. So we're going to make our dot on negative 2, our point. Okay, so here's 1, there's 0, negative 1, negative 2. So there's my negative 2, and I can label it above if I want to. Then I'm going to do my 8. So here it's between 7 and 8, or 7 and 9. Make my dot on the line at the 8. Okay, and these little tick marks represent my numbers. Then I have a negative 7. So here's 0. I'm now looking to the left because it's negative. Make my dot on the negative 7. And there we go. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for B. Okay, so I'm going to make my number line. The smallest number that I am going to be graphing today is going to be the number furthest from 0 to the left, and that's negative 4. And the largest number is furthest to the right from the 0, and that's 10. So I have to make sure my numbers span from at least negative 4 to 10. So I have negative 4 here, negative 2, 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I'll go one more set, 11 and 12. So once again, you are plotting the points on the line. Okay, so negative 4 here, here's my negative 4. I make a dot at the negative 4. I can put that number above if I want. Then I have a 10. It's going to be to the right of the 0. It's positive. There's 10. Negative 3. So here's the 0, negative 1, negative 2. There's my negative 3. And last of all, my 0. And my 0 is going to be between the negative numbers and the positive. Here's my 0. Okay. You'll notice that my numbers count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as I go to the right, and they count down. They seem like they're counting down when I go to the left as my negative numbers. Okay, so make sure you're aware of that when you make your number line. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about is absolute value. And your absolute value is a distance a number is away from 0. Now, absolute value, because it represents a distance, okay, it's meaning that it has to be positive. You can't drive a negative amount of miles. You can't run a negative amount of miles. You can go in a negative direction, but the distance is always going to represent a positive number. Okay, so my absolute value is going to represent the distance that number is away from 0. Okay, the symbol looks like this. It's two straight lines that come around the number. It's kind of like a parentheses, but not quite. Go straight. All right, I'm just going to start by just showing you what I'm talking about when I talk about the distance from 0. So I have a positive 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and here's 8. Okay, I want to know how many steps it's going to be to get to 0. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So my absolute value of a positive 8 is 8. Okay, your answer should be positive. For problems like this, you're going to leave the numbers that do not have absolute value signs alone. So it's going to be 2 plus, now the absolute value of negative 3. Once again, what's the distance from negative 3? And I can include that up here. How many steps away is it? It is 1, 2, 3 from 0. So you begin to see a pattern that it's basically going to be the positive number of that number. So if I have 8, the positive version of absolute value of 8 is 8. The positive version of negative 3 is 3. Okay? Now for this one, it's an expression. So I'm going to go ahead and add. 2 plus 3 is 5, and this would be my solution. So I always want you to rewrite it. Okay, rewrite the problem without the absolute value sign, find the absolute value, and then solve. All right, then I have negative 6. So negative 6 minus 5, I want to find the absolute value of the negative 6. So how far is negative 6 away from 0? It is 6 places minus 5. And these numbers aren't changing once again that are outside the absolute value sign. 6 minus 5 is 1. And here's my solution. Okay, so once again, if you ever have questions on anything you've learned today, make sure you come in and ask Mr. Kohlinger or myself tomorrow. Once again, we always appreciate that you're watching. Have a good night.